Hello there, welcome to GameByte. My name is Brett Claxton. Today I am joined by Lara Jackson and we are talking to you about Resident Evil 2 because we had the chance to play it for review, both of us.
Yes.
And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I was genuinely blown away. Like, I can't remember the last time a game made me not want to stop as much as that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't remember the last time because I did it in one sitting, so I don't think I've ever done that with a game before and not wanting to take a break.
Yeah, and there are some things I think maybe the story could do a touch better, but it definitely keeps you gripped from the beginning to keep pushing forward to find new things and everything, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we came out the game from different Resident Evil histories. So first one I played was 4, and then 7. I don't count 5 and 6 as Resident Evil games. But I never played the original 2, so whereas you were a huge fan of it. So.
Yeah, like, I mean, Resident Evil 2, the original, I still class as one of my favourite games of all time. And even after playing this, I think I would still class it as one of my favourite games. But I would say that this is on par with it. I think this does deliver. This delivers everything you want in a remake without it being so terrible that it's nothing like the original.
Yeah.
And I thought that was it's a hard task, like, for anyone to have, as you've seen with like people pushing against a lot of remakes happening. But they've done a really good job recreating parts of it and giving you a lot of nostalgia, whilst also bringing new things to the table that are interesting.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel like I was missing out from not having played the original.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, like, if you had played it, you'd get to a few bits and be like, oh, I remember this happening in the original. And there are quite a few moments that are sort of, you go in thinking that they're going to happen and they don't, and then something different happens, and that's kind of cool. They play on the nostalgia in really interesting ways that you aren't always going to get the exact same thing at the exact same time, but that doesn't make it a weaker experience for it.
Yeah, because it's still got to be a horror game, even if you've played, the sort of base version of it before. You don't want to. It's not a jump scare if you know that happened originally.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think so many horror games these days are obviously angled more towards jump scares. Me and you both obviously as massive horror fans. It's probably one of the best, maybe the best I've played this gen. There's not much I'd put up there with it. Alien Isolation and Evil Within, maybe. Resi 7 was good. I think this is better than 7 personally.
See, this for me played more like 4 because it was still very actiony. I don't know if that was because you're playing as a police officer, so you're good with a gun and you know all the moves and the things that people criticised about Resident Evil 4 when it first came out. It didn't really feel too much like a horror game for me. There were no bits where I was scared or like hesitant to go forward with it, whereas when I played 7, it was a relief to get to the typewriter and save the game, and it was just a big trauma of going through it, whereas this was more linear and more action-based. There was no real fear for me. No.
Fair. That's fair. I think on quite a few occasions it creeped under my skin, and I think as well when I play it again, I'll play it on hard, where it's gone back to the old days of you have to save on the typewriter and you've only got limited saves, which is a nice touch. It makes it more like the old Resident Evil, and I think that adds more of the fear. Knowing you've got the autosaves coming does make it a bit more like, well, it's not that big a deal if I die. It's not ideal if I do, but it's not the end of the world if I do, sort of thing. Whereas when you're like, there were a few occasions where I was terrified, and maybe not terrified, that's a bit of a strong word maybe, but I was genuinely scared. It's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but like the big tyrant dude that comes about, as has been shown off in trailers, he's genuinely he is terrifying the way he stalks about you.
Yeah, especially because I played with surround sound, so when you could hear his footsteps, it was a bit like, ugh. But I feel like there was a bit of build up there, but not too much payoff, but I'm not going to say too much about that.
That's fine. And but that was always how he sort of was in Resi 2, I suppose, is he's sort of just there to be an annoyance for a lot of the time, and if anything, it helps you appreciate the way they've built out the game a bit. It becomes obvious, it's like, he is very difficult. Yeah, you can try and kill him if you want, but that isn't always going to be the best option, and it is that fight and flight option that I think they do handle well. And I think that's where I think a lot of the fear came for me from playing the game, is the sort of situation where I've been a bit too hesitant on shooting a zombie and tried to get the headshot, but then they wobbled one way, they wobbled another, and then they've got a step closer, and now it's a case of, well, I need to take the shot now or they're going to bite me, but it's too late. And it is that sort of thing of the fight. I think the way they handled fight and flight was quite good, just because there was a situation where I had 2 handgun bullets and 3 shotgun shells and looked like I wasn't going to be able to get forward in the game, and had to fight or flight because there was no way I was going to be able to kill the enemies that were coming at me. I found that a very interesting sort of way that they built that. Everything's dangerous, and I think that was a cool thing. Like, even zombies were just as dangerous as lickers, really. Even though lickers were much faster and much harder, they were still very dangerous, but everyone did sort of equal damage to you nearly.
Yeah. I think the pacing of the baddies was really good, because I was starting to get cocky with the zombies, because you get a few of them down, or you learn how to get around them and whatever, and then it's I've got it down, and then lickers came in and I was like, oh no, this is new, don't like this. And then there was tyrant and stuff, so I felt like every time I was getting into, I don't want to say comfortable, but when I felt like I was doing well at it, they threw something else at you, and it was perfect pace-wise.
Yeah, and I think that is why I put it so high as a horror, because I think I do get your point that it's not that scary, and even like it creeped me out, but at no point was I genuinely over the top terrified. But the way it handled everything, I feel, was masterful. Like the fact that the enemies were introduced at the right time. It seemed that their placement in nearly all situations that you come into them is the right placement for them. It's not a case of they're just putting an enemy there to be annoying. They're putting an enemy there because this is the best place to do it. And then you've got to make decisions of like, do I need to waste my ammo on these zombies? And if you can sort of figure that out as you play along. Like, I personally was trying to clear out any corridors that I was going down and was like, oh, there's a locked door. I was thinking, well, I probably want to make sure I can come back to it without it being an issue. And that's where the boarding up windows mechanic comes in really handy, is you can try and predict where this situation is going to do and to do it to your best judgment, and sometimes that judgment might be poor and you're still going to get destroyed by not putting the windows in the right places and the boards in the right places. The
choices that you can make are what really makes it a survival horror, because this is the first time that I've played a survival horror where limited inventory hasn't really frustrated me. It's one of those things that I usually hate, but I think this was handled quite well. There were a lot of, do you call them storage boxes?
Yeah.
Storage boxes were pretty much always somewhat near, and then you could upgrade it. So there was not a lot of, I need to move this around and should I leave this? And I also liked that you knew when an item had reached its full usage.
Yeah, that is a nice touch. They do let you know if they've got is it like a little red dot or something like that? Just saying like, this can be discarded, and it is a case of, as someone who likes hoarding in games, I still went and put them all back in the item box, but you can just discard them knowing that you're not going to need it again, which is a good thing. But then it was also, I don't know why I kept them, because I knew I didn't need them, but as you said, you upgrade the inventory, so you try and get more, and it all comes down to how you want to play that first game. Like, I was very meticulous. I think I did get the sort of like, you have records which tell you like things that you should try and do to you unlock models or you unlock other cool things, and one of them was max out your expansions, and so I took enough time to find all of them, which is probably why it took much longer than you to finish it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to play it, and
I think that's what I liked, and that's what I feel 7 missed out on. Like, my 2 issues with 7 is I didn't think the enemies were varied or interesting enough. The bosses were cool, but I think the general enemies weren't varied enough, and also there wasn't that much to explore once you'd explored it. There wasn't like side areas or things where it was like risk and reward kind of situations.
Yeah, I think I class that more as horror than 2 Remake. It's got that claustrophobic sort of feel of, because I'm comparing the two because you get followed by people and it's scary. That's usually the thing that scares me most in any horror game, is when you don't know if it's just behind you or in front of you. And I didn't really get that same level of fear because maybe 2 is a bit more open map-wise.
Yeah.
And it gets familiar very quickly.
But that's one of the things I generally love, because I think it was sleep deprivation of trying to get this done in time for review, but it was just a case of like, I missed an area that I should have gone down and spent about an hour just walking around the police station trying to figure out what route to take. And from doing that, it almost became like, you know how in Dawn of the Dead it gets to the point where they just get so familiar with the routine that they're just going about and doing it. It got like that, but then when stuff hit the fan, it was a case of, I almost like Rain Manned in my head the map. I didn't have to look at the map, I knew which way I needed to go. So I was picking up items, knowing I had to do something to, knew how to get there, knew what routes I'd cleared out, so what to keep out of. And I almost liked that familiarity for that situation, because then when something happened that you weren't expecting, it genuinely shocks you.
So is the map different enough from the original game then?
Yeah, there's less of an emphasis on the city, whereas in the original game there's a much more larger emphasis on the streets. It feels that they wanted to make the police station almost a character in its own. It is a case of it's this like living character, like the mansion in Resi 1 and like the mansion in Resi 7. Like their whole compound was like this living thing, and then that's why I didn't like the ship part in 7, because it was too different in a weird way, whereas I feel Resi 2's transitioned into new areas. It feels like an evolution of the area you've been, so you take the knowledge you've gained, but it never feels so different that you are overwhelmed by it. There's some really good monster design in there. There's a few monsters that don't seem to make the jump from the original, which is a shame, but I won't tell you what, because that's spoilers obviously, and it would be sad to spoil that for you, but there were a few things that I'd like to have seen them do, but I think the way that they've handled what they have put in was still really interesting. And Lickers are probably the best they've ever been in the franchise, I think, because they've appeared in most of the games. Like I think they appeared in 5. Did they appear in 5? They've appeared in other games apart from 2 is basically the point, and this is the best version of them. The fact that you don't always have to fight them makes them even more terrifying. And I think that's the thing. I think trying to play the game, because in your first run, I don't know if it's the same as you, like there are parts where you maybe will run low on ammo, but you do then near the end start picking up more and more ammo. Even then, it was a case of, well, I wanted to preserve it just in case something big was happening. It's still that case of like, do I try and engage in this fight knowing that these super fast beings are going to come at me? Or do I try and do X, Y, Z? And I think it's the choice that the game gives you is what has to be praised for it. Whereas, in other Resi games, it's a case of the AI is obviously programmed just to attack you, and that's it. In this, it's almost like zombies don't necessarily have a routine, but it's a case of some of them might be stuck in a room and won't follow you, and other monsters seem to have different bits and pieces, which is cool. I just thought it was cool the way that you can handle different monsters in different ways. Yeah,
I liked that, because I tried to play Resident Evil HD when it came out on the PS4, because I missed out on the originals for Resident Evil, Silent Hill, stuff like that. And I couldn't get into it. I can't do tank controls. I missed out on that part of my childhood, and now I'm too old to do it. And the limited saves, and it was just, I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, it was just past the time for me to do that. So when they announced the Resi 2 remake, I thought it was going to be the same deal, and it was going to be basically just a remaster. But they've done it in a way that it's accessible for people that didn't play the originals, but it still has that nostalgia for you from what you said. Yeah,
I think it's the best controls for the third-person Resi games, personally. I don't...
Yeah.
Like, 4 was fine, but obviously it's dated now. 6 had really good controls. The Revelations games did well. But I really just, the way that this moves, I just like the way, it's very easy to line up headshots, which is how you need to shoot everything, basically.
Yeah.
Because they're all zombies, to a degree.
Yeah.
Well, they're not all zombies, but they're all the undead, so the best way to kill the undead thing is always shoot the brain. That's horror 101.
Yeah.
we haven't really talked about the graphics, which seems to be something we should talk about, I suppose.
Yeah, I think they were really. It looked very pretty for a horror game. It was all very smooth. The design. It wasn't like the same zombie over and over again. There was differences, and even the way they walked. Some of them would walk differently, and there was a lot to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like you touched upon the zombies move differently, and that in the original, when you try to speedrun it and stuff like that, you can sort of gather, oh, I can run behind this one's back because they won't move. Whereas sometimes you do this to these zombies and they'll double lunge at you or something like that.
Okay.
And then just get you. And so it's a case of, as I've talked about the fight and flight thing, you're in that situation where I started doubting myself more. It's like, can I actually get past this? So I was in some situations maybe wasting ammo to take out a zombie. But then there was the fun situations where I was basically looking at them from afar, waiting for them to be the way I wanted to, slowly sneaking up, then just legging it as quick as I can. I think the variety in the fact that not all zombies will behave the way that they do. Some zombies go down really easily and never come back up, whereas some
just don't go down.
Yeah, like they keep coming back up. And there's lots of other things that I'm not going to get into, but like you're almost punished if you want to. It's almost like you want to be thorough and shoot everything you see just in case it is zombies.
Yeah.
But you're almost punished if that's your route, because one, you'll just waste all your ammo on stuff that may not be needed, and two, like you'll just annoy a lot of people, or not people, but unpeoples.
I think my favourite thing was the map, how the map actually worked. So if you missed an item, it would show up on the map that you missed it, the room and what it was. And the same for puzzles, it would say, this is locker puzzle.
Yeah.
And it would be saved onto the map, so it was so easy to navigate. And then it changes colours, doesn't it? Once the room's done, because it changes colour on the map, which is good for people that haven't played a lot of survival horror, or people like me who have the worst sense of direction and completely forget where everything is.
Like me, as someone, I do it in RPGs all the time as well. I have to have every item, and there was one item which I knew was down a ridiculous corridor to even make a dash down, because I'd already gone there, got spun around because of a situation and missed. It was just a grenade, so it wasn't even that big an item, but I really wanted it.
I think I know the bit, yeah.
But because I really wanted it, and I was in a situation, it's like, well, it was during my period of time of not knowing where to go. So I basically was like, well, I'm going to see if it's in here. Maybe I missed a note or something to tell me where to go. Was able to manoeuvre down there without antagonising anything, zigzag about some things, grab the grenade and get back. And it's like, it's those stories that you almost construct yourself. This isn't the story that they're wanting to tell you. This is you just wanting this. You want the shiny thing. And it really does make it so sometimes getting the shiny things is a lot of effort, but it's worth it.
Yeah, risk and reward.
And there's the weapons, the weapon design and the way they work, I think is great as well. Although I was a bit disappointed. Shotguns aren't that powerful. They do a lot of like visual damage, but like they didn't seem to like. In the original, you shoot a shotgun, it was like blow someone's head off, whereas in this, it didn't always seem to do that. But you would like take their skin off, which is still cool to see.
Yeah, the shotgun wasn't my favourite gun to use.
But and obviously, if you're playing as Claire instead of the shotgun, you'll get the grenade launcher, which I realise might be a spoiler, but it's not if you play the classic. That's what makes it nice. Is we're talking from a very Leon perspective, because that's the main thing we've played. But you can play as Claire, and you get the different story beats. You find out, you really have to play as both to get an understanding of the whole story they're trying to tell, because there's things that get touched upon in both campaigns that you don't see as a whole. So you get to sort of then see everything as a whole from doing both campaigns.
Yeah, just playing Leon would give you a lot of holes for the story, so it's good that the two side.
It's also just like there's different supporting cast and stuff like that, so it's worth just pushing through. And obviously when you finish the game, you've then got some cool end game content that we're not going to get into, but it's really nice endgame content that will keep you occupied for a while. And that's the thing, you play through Leon's campaign, you play through Claire's campaign. It took you, what, 8.5 to do Leon's?
About 8, yeah.
Took me probably about 10 to 11, just because...
I didn't try and get all the items.
Yeah,
like that.
I was running about looking at all the items, trying to read up on the lore to see how they handled that side of it as well. That's probably how long it will take you on your if you choose Leon or Claire to be who you play as first. There's you get the same sort of story beats as you go through, so it is a case of like, get to the police station, which isn't a spoiler because the police station's the main thing that's shown off. And then you'll see certain characters and have to do certain things the same, but it's how the supporting cast interact with you and stuff like that. And as I said, obviously Leon is a police officer, and that's one thing I actually really like about how they treated Leon is he feels like someone who wants to be a police officer. He very much wants to do good.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they always handled well. If I remember rightly, in the original, the reason he turns up late is because he broke up with his girlfriend and went on a bender.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that.
So, whereas in this, it's just a case of he's a week late, or he didn't hear back from. He just basically he's just late and he wants to do good the whole time.
I think they said don't come because it's bad.
Yeah, and the whole time he's just like, I want to help.
Yeah.
And
he wants to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's sort of been hinted at in like Resi 4 and other versions of him, where it's like he is just the good guy who really wants to do what he considers the right thing to do.
It's a good starting point for the character though, because in 4 he is a bit more like seasoned killer, whereas this one he's a bit like, I want to help everyone, I want to do everything, let's run around and brush my blonde hair. It's a bit he's a lot younger in this, and it feels like he is younger in this. I think they've done that well. And
it's the same with Claire as well. Like she's handled well. She's obviously there to try and find out about her brother, and there's cool things that you find out as you do that. And as I said, we're not going to talk too much about the story because we really don't want to spoil those story beats, but both have some really cool parts, and you're looking at anywhere between 15 to 20 hours, I imagine, and then you've got loads of endgame content to get through. You've got records that tell you to complete the game in under 4 hours, which is something that I plan to do.
Is that really a thing?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But I think, and that's what you could do in the original as well. And you find once you've played it once, even if with the slight changes that may happen, you sort of already know parts of the map.
Yeah.
So you're then going back and doing it again, and that then means you're a bit quicker in it. And that's the main thing, is you're not. Yeah, it may have taken me 10 hours to do it the first time, but it isn't going to take me 10 hours to do it the next time because I know where to go, I know what to do, and it almost then, as you said, it's not necessarily scary because you sort of make it part of your routine, but it's still good. It's still a very good game to play.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very immersive.
I would probably say I'd be shocked if by the end of the year it's not in my my game of the year list. It's better than. I'd probably say it's better than any game from last year that I played.
Oh, that's big talk.
Yeah, it's at the moment I think it's one of the best games I've played for a while. But then it's a combination for me of not just nostalgia, but I just think their delivery has been on point, and there's just so much endgame stuff there. It's just done well.
Yeah, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward to getting back in and trying out more stuff and getting all the notes and items and all that fun stuff. Is it the best game that I've played in the last? Are we saying last 12 months?
Well, you don't have to say that. I'm saying it's the best game I've probably played in the last 12 months. Whether or not time changes that perception, I just think it will have to. Games that I don't think will be as highly rated in my mind at the end of the year, I don't see it falling out of the top 10 of my games of the year.
Yeah, there's not too many games that I'm expected to come out this year that I was as excited for, or I'm as excited for as this one. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Obviously, if you would like to hear more about what we think of it in a more official capacity, we have got a review that you can read in the comments. But until next time, I've been Brett from GameByte.
I've been Lara from GameByte.
And you have been wonderful. Goodbye.